Anashay, on Hillary Clinton. She got more young voters. She did not get, although Bernie Sanders still got more. She increased her percentage. She is winning the African American community, the Hispanic community, so far as we know.
Yep.
So what does she need to consolidate her win and move forward?
You know, when the conversation with the whole Steinem Albright kind of controversy erupted a couple of weeks ago, it really seemed like Hillary Clinton's campaign was getting a kind of blowback, and young women started feeling like we're not entitled to vote for you just because you're a woman. But I thought what was great about Super Tuesday was that Hillary really came out winning. I mean, she scored big with almost all the major non-white voters. You keep going to say minority, non-white voter blocks, with the Latinos, with the blacks, with the Asians. So I think this is really important. I mean, these groups are just as coveted as the infamous millennial vote, which I still think Sanders has an edge over her. But you know, it's a long time until well, not that long, but we still have some time.
Well, and of course, one group that she did not win at all with was white male Democrats, and yet Donald Trump, Hadley, is doing great with white men in the Republican Party. Tell us what the Republican women are doing with Trump, please.
Well, we see a high percentage of all Republicans, about 40%, saying things like they will never support Donald Trump or he's their least favorite candidate. So he's been a very divisive figure on the right side of politics. That number is always slightly higher among women voters on the GOP. Slightly more women say that they're very turned off by Donald Trump, and that's no surprise given the sexist overtones of many of the comments that he's made on the campaign trail and previous to his candidacy. When it comes to the other candidates, you know, it's the same problem that the GOP faces with any voting bloc. It's divided. It's a fractured opposition to Donald Trump, and you have women supporting John Kasich, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio, but it's not enough for any one of those candidates to pose a real threat to Donald Trump, at least not today.
Okay, so what are Republican women going to do in the voting booth in the fall if it's Trump versus Clinton? Are they going to not show up?
That's a good question, and you may have seen that there's even a hashtag that's been trending among some conservative and GOP voters called Never Trump, hashtag Never Trump. There are some people who say, I simply will sit out from the November general election if my choices are between a Democrat with whom conservative voters don't share policy ideals, or Donald Trump, someone whose personality has been so off-putting, and frankly on the issues doesn't have a record, has never held public office, so there's not a lot of predictability in terms of what Mr. Trump will or will not do in terms of fulfilling some of those campaign promises that he's made. So there are certainly a large contingent of GOP voters who've been turned off by Mr. Trump. On the other hand, interesting trend is that Donald Trump has done better in these primary contests that are open primaries, that are open to independent and moderate voters, because he's really not that conservative on a few policy issues. He seems to have an interesting populist authoritarian ideology that he's bringing to this campaign, and so he is pulling some voters who maybe haven't been involved or engaged in the political process for some time, who don't see themselves necessarily as conservatives, but who are voting in the GOP primary because that's where Mr. Trump is.